It's Friday, the 25th of July, and welcome to This Week in Events with Jill Hawkins and Paul Richardson.
Hi,
And
Bob. How you doing?
all very well, thank you. We've got sunshine at the window this morning.
It's nice, isn't it? Makes change.
And if you hear any funny noises on my end, it's because I've got my neighbour doing something in their bathroom, and across the way, they're doing a whole rebuild. They've knocked the house down and replaced it with wood. So they're using the loudest mechanical tools they can find.
Oh, wow. That's the only trouble with working from home, isn't it? That if you're there, building regulations always used to be based on the fact that people went out to work in the day and weren't at home. So if you're working from home, you've got building work going on around you. It's a bit noisy. We can't
No,
hear it, Bob.
Yeah.
Morning all.
See, Paul Richardson, Mr. Paul Richardson, is actually got enough money to afford an office.
Get him.
It's because I'm not allowed to take all the collected clutter of 20 years in PR back to the house. I don't know where I'd store things like cameras and exhibition stands and multiple computers that go back to the days of the Ark. We will have a tidy up at some point and throw some of this away. But good morning. Hi.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
When you're talking about noise, the one thing you do get disturbed within the office is when the groundskeepers come, and it's usually in a Zoom call, and then they start mowing and trimming and chopping trees down and things. So hopefully this morning, fingers crossed, all quiet.
What office setup sounds very posh. You have groundskeepers.
Yeah, not ours.
But
Belongs to the landlord.
in the grounds, though, that's nice.
Well, it gives you an excuse to get out of the house, doesn't it, Paul?
Yes, that is another reason why the officers are here.
Yes.
Prevents domestic violence.
Excellent.
I can imagine somebody standing at the front door going, looking at a watch going, isn't it time you left?
Yep. Go and take all your rubbish to the office with you.
That's why we have a very big cupboard behind me with that's the cupboard of doom with everything stored in that you can just shut the door and it's all away.
Cupboard of doom or cupboard of shame?
Cupboard of shame, probably, actually.
Everybody needs a cupboard of shame.
Right, I said I would go first, didn't I?
You did this week, yes.
I did. Well, I wanted to talk about AI just because everyone's talking about it. And because everyone's talking about it, have we reached peak AI? Are we at the point where actually we're fed up with it? People are using it. Some people are using it badly. We've seen really bad examples of LinkedIn and other articles being written by AI, and they're not very good. We've probably seen some good examples of AI and not realized because actually it's really good prompting. And we've seen AI generated images that can be awful, people with 6 fingers and that sort of thing. So what are your thoughts on AI? Have we reached peak, or are we actually going to delve in a lot more? Is it going to get worse or better? Paul?
Go for it.
Yeah, my first thought is no. I think we're if you think about the classic marketing bell curve, the innovators they've been often embedding this stuff into their systems and their processes for a number of years, so they're way off down the road. I think we're in the kind of the early adopters phase of people are still experimenting with it to see where it can be. Maybe we stray now into the early majority, so a large number of people, but there's this big horde of people who haven't actually tapped into it for their own use. They might use it as part of something else that they're doing. So they might use it as part of a platform, or when they interact with something online, AI might be speaking to them, so they are subconsciously and unwittingly using it. But I think the actual direct using it to do something, I think there's still plenty of scope for that. I think there's a huge majority of people to come, and as it's getting embedded into more and more and more systems. So we talk it very much on the surface level that we see it generate the generative AI. So it creating images, copy, those kind of things. But the flip side of that is the stuff where it's embedded. Interestingly enough, I pinged an email across I've just bought some fancy pants. These shoes that are supposed to be flat.
I thought you actually meant fancy pants. I thought you were talking about Y-fronts. That's brilliant.
Y-fronts. Right, thanks, Jill. That's
Boxer shorts. Sorry, I'm showing my age.
Oh, that's so bad. You're having to use AI to help you choose your underwear.
Your underwear.
That
Yeah.
is peak AI, isn't it?
No, I get regularly bought at Christmas and birthdays several packs of oddballs underpants, which are for anybody who wants it. It's testicular cancer. It supports the charity, and it's they're promoted by the Rugby Football Union. So I wear oddballs. There's my little plug for the charity. But I bought some walking shoes, and they're these new flat-soled, in touch with the earth, grounded kind of things, to try and relieve a bit of Achilles problem I've got, and it's supposed to level out your walking. So I sent off for these, and they did looked at the tracking, and it said delivered, and they haven't been. So I pinged a message to the supplier, and within less than a minute, I got a fully structured email back. They knew it had me, it had my address, my order number, it had a link to the tracking of the parcel. It was written in a very customer-friendly manner, absolutely superb. And then at the end of it, right at the bottom, it said, if you've checked your neighbours, blah, 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 secret hiding place, all that usual stuff. At the bottom, it said, click here once you've done that search to progress it to a human interaction. So that was an AI-generated email in response to me raising a query with them about the delivery of a product. So that's beautifully done, but that's just part now embedded in their customer service.
Yes, customer service and AI. I have a bad example of that. So I've been talking about it on LinkedIn and other places that I've had a really bad time with my current web hosting company. They've migrated to another platform, so a lot of it's now ruined, and I had to fix it. But one of their sponsors so I raised a customer support ticket and a lot of exchanges, and then one of the responses I'm pretty sure was AI generated, because first of all, it's to do with the response speed of page loading. It was really, really slow. So they suggested that I remove all images. I have one logo, so I'm not quite sure how many images they were like. Then they talked about programming behind it. And then one of the other suggestions was to remove flash animations. That would be Adobe Flash, that thing we stopped using,
10 years ago?
When Apple said we're not supporting flash animations on iPhones anymore, or any of our products, that went away. So for some reason, they've suggested removing something that no longer exists on a website that doesn't use it.
Did they also suggest you should format it for Netscape Navigator 2.0?
No, I think they probably missed that one. I mean, perhaps they should have done, who knows? But I'm pretty sure, I'm like 90% sure it's an AI-generated response. So, and I know they already use AI to, when you hit the support ticket button, you type in your stuff, it then comes up with a whole bunch of suggestions before continuing to submit the ticket. So they already are using AI.
But can I just throw in, is it actually AI or is it just clever programming? Because there's a huge difference, and this is where we get into AI washing. There's a hell of a lot of AI washing going on in the events industry, where people actually, when you drill down into it, it's not AI powered at all. It's just clever programming. It's just, take that, if that and that equals that, you do this. Paul, your letter, your email could have just been, yep, we just generate somebody, it's not AI. It's just a clever program, and that's it. Because we've had examples of, do you remember Amazon and their just walk out stores that you could just walk in and it would then bill your account? That wasn't AI at all. That was a load of people sitting behind screens, actually watching people walk around and actually putting things in there. But, there's so many examples of that.
I have a beef anyway, because AI carries with it the suggestion it's intelligent, it's artificial intelligence. But if it's that good, why does it at the bottom of ChatGPT and Gemini saying, we get things wrong, especially about people.
Oh, it hallucinates.
And it hallucinates. So can we call it what it is, which is machine intelligence? It's nothing to do with artificial. We're not talking to something that's human-like. It's still a machine that's calculating what to say next.
And you've got to be really careful. Yeah, exactly. Any large language model is just predictive text. It's just predicting what should come next. It's not actually thinking. AI doesn't think. There was a Apple paper, I think it was, about this. One of my clients, Simon, is a bit of an AI expert, and I've been chatting to him a lot about this. But also there was the Air Canada, where a chatbot told a customer that they could get a refund on a ticket, and the customer couldn't get the refund. It was not their policy to get the refund. So the customer took Air Canada to court, and Air Canada said, oh, it was just a chatbot. You know, it wasn't really us. It was just a chatbot. And Air Canada, the court ruled that Air Canada was liable, because if you employ, I say in inverted commas, a chatbot to do your work, you are liable for what it says. You have to make sure it's trained properly. You can't just sort of abdicate responsibility. So I think it's a bit of Wild West still out there.
Do you think actually tagging AI into your on your webpage in your marketing copy is AI just a marketing term?
I do feel like that. Yeah, I think people throw, oh, it's AI powered, and it's not.
The key difference is fixed versus adaptive, isn't it? And a computer program is fixed. It is written to perform a certain set of tasks. So if the customer or the client or the person interacting does this, or the input is this, the program does Y, the result is Z. And that's a fixed process and doesn't do anything. Where AI looks and makes decisions that would normally require a human to look at it and go, oh, hang on, that. Do they mean this? For sake of argument, if somebody puts in a particular a word or a phrase that's not quite correct, it's interpreting that, because programming would go incorrect input, can't process, because that's not what you were telling me to do. So if you spell pig P-I-G, that's not what I'm expecting. I'm expecting P-I-G. Whereas AI would look at that and interpret that information and make a decision based on what's in there. It would say, what is this trying to be? It looks like that, and off it goes. So it's adaptive versus fixed.
I agree, but I think we put far too much, what's the word? Trust in AI? Not trust. I don't think Skynet are going to come along and kill us all. Or I do use please and thank you when I use ChatGPT. But did you see recently that Google's AI refused to play chess with an Atari from 1977? An Atari computer, and it managed to talk itself out of playing chess with it because it was convinced it was going to lose. And that was an Atari. Come on.
Yeah, I saw that story. Atari 7600. Yeah,
that was it. I just thought that was brilliant.
Well, speaking of human interactions and, well, the necessity for human interactions, I think it leads into what you want to talk about today, Paul. In particular, Tomorrowland.
Well, yeah, my bit was on, as we're talking about comms and PR mostly here, and news reporting was, everybody's probably seen the huge fire where the main stage at Tomorrowland went up before the gig started, and the handling of that as a news piece and a piece of content. Now, there's two elements to this. There's one that is the public-facing comms, and behind that is the operational methodology. What happens if somebody there in the background has a crisis plan, management plan, nailed down to the nth degree, with the areas of flexibility to allow it to adapt. Watching it unfold, I'm just a lovely prophet of doom and gloom. I love watching these kind of things just to see how they're handled and what happens. But operationally, it was brilliant. The fact that they then or either somebody reached out to them or they reached out to somebody and got a replacement stage, and that was put in. But the comms was all about this will happen, and as soon as ever there was nobody injured, it was just kit that went up. There was no harm to people, and that it could be switched out and turned around. The comms switched into gear really quickly in terms of giving everybody the exact information they needed. So, is it going to go ahead? First of all, is this terminal for the event or is it not? No, it's not. We're still going to do something, which then, because there was the intention then to go ahead, whichever way that comms happened, they got the second stage coming in, and they were able then to replace that to get the thing ahead, and it worked really well. They built this very, very positive vibe around the events going to happen, even though there was this, what could have been a catastrophic event.
So that's a perfect demonstration then that somebody had given some thought to what if, not something they thought of, oh, what are we going to do? But we have a written plan. Let's get the folder out. We'll go through the steps and this is what we have to do.
And I think more than that, I think that there's clearly been that they've gamed it. They've done tabletop exercises because it ran so smoothly. So they have sat down and they have done the exercise that says, okay, here's 3 or 4 scenarios. What happens if A, B, C, D? And I mean, the fact that whether they gamed through a fire, they did do something that was a catastrophic event that may stop this happening. Right? How do we handle that? How do we write the media? The unfortunate things that I think there's an element there that the bit they missed, and when it kind of came a little bit unstuck is there's a woman died during the festival, suspected drug and alcohol issue. That I think they were probably too busy doing a post-crisis rap, or maybe reeling from the effects of that, and everybody kind of a collective sigh of relief. And that one got out a little bit unnoticed or unmanaged, and then they had to do a bit of a mopping up exercise afterwards. I would imagine they'll have planned for that, because when you've got that many people on site moving around, there's a likelihood that somebody might die, somebody might be injured. You can't legislate for epileptic fit that might kill somebody, or a heart attack, or an aneurysm, or any all these things. People are people, and they break. So how do you cope with that? But I just think that one got out. The press got hold of that one before they'd had a chance to, I think, get their game plan together. But it was a very interesting contrast between the two, because the first bit was exemplary. I was watching it just thinking, yeah, this is really good.
I thought it was absolutely brilliant, and I loved the fact that the events industry got into the national press in a positive, sort of negative, but positive. Normally we only seem to see negativity, that something goes wrong, something's cancelled, that sort of thing. But actually, this was something that went wrong, hugely wrong, but then got turned around. And I would pay good money to see the people from Tomorrowland speak about that and what they had to do. That's going to be a session, it's on one of the industry events over the next year. Hopefully we're going to get them there, and we'll be able to learn from that.
Do you think it's you mentioned about the negative press about when things go wrong? Is that a difference? Are we seeing the difference between reacting to an event, a bad thing happening, or against what we've seen with Tomorrowland, where they've actually had a plan?
I just think the very nature of the national press does seem to be, in most cases, they report on the negative, not on the positive. Because positives and things going well aren't newsworthy. We've even seen things like, I think it's called Good Times, where people have launched newspapers that only focus on positive things rather than negative, because the national media does focus on negatives, because that's, why report on the 99 events that went really, really well when we can focus on the one that didn't?
But do the good time news outlets, do they still exist? Because if people are going, oh, it's nice to see this good thing happening. Oh, look over there, something bad has happened, and they all go and have a look at that instead. So do those publications last?
I believe so. I hope so. I don't know. I need to have a look, actually. I should Google it, shouldn't I, whilst I'm chatting. But yeah, I agree with Paul totally. That was an amazing feat.
And it's it was an example of balanced reporting. I think that was what was nice to be seen. But I suspect a lot of that is also to do with how quickly the team at the event engaged with the media, how quickly and how well they presented information and kept the media informed, so that they weren't hunting around and scratching around for stories. They weren't digging. They didn't need to send people into the field to talk to, I don't know, the person standing there with a Zippo lighter, grinning, saying, "No, I was part of that." It's they weren't hunting bad news, and they weren't hunting for it, because it was being fed to them in a controlled and precise manner, and none of it was in any way. None of it seemed to be cover up kind of news or information. It was facts. It was the recognition that there was a problem. That was one of the first things. Yes, this is an issue, and this is a bump, 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 bump. And then you can't really hide it, can you? Because there's a 200 or 300-foot column of smoke and flame coming up from the thing. So, it is very, very visible and very public. But it's a matter of scale, but it's still important how it's handled, and the messaging and the engagement. You bring the media in close, and you talk to them, and you engage with them, and you make sure they've got what they need, and they won't have to run around and find stuff and dig stuff up. You're not going to be able to manage the narrative completely, but at least you're not going to have a hostile press banging on your door and running around. And they, like us, want the right information in the hands of the right people, so it's in their own interests.
So it sounds like this plan they had of what if, they've been able to express to the media and anybody else interesting, okay, this happened and we did this, and now we're going to do that. And when that happens, they can say, well, we've done that, and now we're going to do this. So it sounds like they were in control, and the media had something to talk about because they had steps they were following, as opposed to something bad happened. We did not know what to do, or we ran around like headless chickens. And instead of falling to pieces, which the media would have loved, they actually had steps and were in control. And I think that makes a difference. You think so?
And as Paul said, there are two parts to that, I think, in that every single big event needs a what if plan, as it were. But they also, as Paul said, and I know, Paul will die on this hill, they need to actually communicate that as well. That's a whole nother plan, in a way, is not just getting on and doing with it and having that crisis plan, but having a crisis comms plan as well.
And practicing it.
The team behind it, I would love to invite them to write up like a case study of just how they did that and how they were professional and in control. I think that would make a great read.
Bob, you mentioned, just to pick up on a point, you said, you have the folder, you get it off the shelf. That's just to correct that's old school thinking. That's how people view these kind of things. They need to be embedded in the operational day-to-day stuff. It's a living, breathing document. It's not you don't pull it out when you need it. It actually is part of your whole comms plan, even in terms of having people checking in. Is anything happening at the gates? Is anything happening at the ticketing? Is there any problem with whatever it may be? Stop and search, or bands not coming on. I mean, you go to the other end of the thing. If you have somebody walk off stage, what happens if you have sound failure? How we're going to cope with that? Because and even down to freaky stuff like, what if there's a lightning strike and we lose power on the stage? Can you run an acoustic set for 10,000 people? No. What do you do? Because you're going to have an awful lot of people who are very slightly frustrated, standing in an arena, wondering what the heck do I do next. And if you've got a power outage, just taking your PA out, you've got no way of talking to them.
Yeah. Or with talking about bad things happening at festivals, I went to the Forever Now festival at Milton Keynes Bowl a few weeks ago, and the second stage seemed to be running late, and on 2 occasions, it was the Happy Mondays and the Damned actually got cut off towards the end of a song, and it wasn't the last song of their set. They just the sound went, and just generic music came out of the speakers, and they're still singing. They're still actually on the microphones. They're still talking to the crowd. It was awful. And they didn't, because they're obviously getting the sound from the monitors, so they could hear themselves, but obviously the crowd couldn't hear them. This happened not just once, but twice. And you think that was awful. You know, the crowd were booing, throwing things. They were booing as well, because then suddenly the crowd were all going, "We can't hear you. We cannot hear you." And they're going, "What? What?" And it was just a car crash.
Oh,
Awful.
no.
Because things happen like that. I felt for the sound guys. They were obviously given a right strict, but that hadn't been communicated to the band going on, that perhaps you had less time than you were planned. It was that lack of communication again.
Yeah. Well, keeping an eye on the time, and I'm going to have to improve the way I do segues. Speaking of things going wrong and miscommunication, this week, WeTransfer, the most popular, I'll say the most, a very popular service of large file transfers, made an announcement and caused fear and panic within the event circles. It was shared on LinkedIn by Strawberry Lemonade Events that, well, let me just read a little bit just to give you some idea about what WeTransfer had initially said. It comes down to we must obtain from you certain rights related to content that is covered by intellectual property rights. You hereby grant us a perpetual, worldwide, non-exclusive, royalty-free, transferable, sub-licensable license to use your content for the purpose of operating, developing, commercializing, improving the service of new technology or services, including to improve performance of machine learning models that enhance our content moderation process in accordance with the privacy and cookie policy. I read that all in one go because there weren't many full stops. It was all commas and whatever. And one of the reasons I think it outraged a lot of people, and especially again within the events, a lot of events, is that event planners, they're moving around contracts. They're moving around large files of like what the, just really large documents that are confidential, that need to be kept private. And if WeTransfer suddenly going, well, we might use some of that for our own purposes, that's not good.
It's not, but I would say there's an element of naivety in that as well, because in terms of WeTransfer, I would be really surprised to hear of people moving sensitive documents via something like WeTransfer. That there are various document signing tools out there. We use what was HelloSign. It's now part of Dropbox, but it is a secure document signing service. So all of our documents are transferred across that. That keeps them secure. Slightly more worrying from a comms point of view is if you are sending images of something that's not launched yet. So you have pre-launch images or graphics or whatever they may be, or even design scamps that may never come to light for whatever reason, or any of that kind of stuff. You're putting that, and if they're saying that they can use it, you might see something that maybe didn't see the light of day for a very good reason suddenly being used elsewhere. That's slightly more disturbing.
And even, they're saying that I know they've gone back on this now, but the IP. So, as you know, my husband's a photographer, an event photographer and videographer. He uses WeTransfer all the time to send files over. That's his intellectual property. Those photos are his work. And so suddenly WeTransfer is saying, well, we've got the license for those now. We can sell. And also, does that mean then they've got a sub-licensable license to use your content for
weird
operating?
wording, isn't it?
It is. It's awful wording.
Just to be clear, they have done a follow-up blog post to say this is what we really meant. So whether they've backtracking because of outrage, or they thought they need to clarify. I'm not entirely sure. But they are saying that your content is always your content.
But they are reserving the right to use it, even though you retain the IP.
Yeah, we don't use machine learning or any form of AI to process content shared via WeTransfer. But you said you did.
You reserved the right to do that in the future. That's what it felt like, wasn't it? That we could do that with your stuff.
Tell you what doesn't help is that Facebook has trained us to be more giving when it comes to our privacy. I mean, Facebook has caused outrage in the past with what it allows to share. And if you don't like it, you then opt out. It's not opt in, it's opt out. This feels like it's another example of, well, we can update our terms and conditions. We know you're not probably going to read it, so just carry on. Don't mind us.
Yeah.
And that then brings on the whole thing of, do we actually read terms and conditions? We just click.
It's interesting, and time is another thing in this. When we stopped working with the East of England Arena and Event Centre 4 years ago, when it was bought out and the land was bought for property development, so it ceased to produce live events, and as such, then that contract stopped, and we went off and did our. Then went on working with other clients and different venues, etc. But one of the things in that acquisition process was a news release that went out that was picked up by a publication in the events industry. The image was supplied by our client 4 years ago to go into that. So this has been used 4 years ago in a publication. The publication has then had a notification from a library, an image library, saying, we think this is one of ours. Can you prove it isn't? Which is always great. How do you prove a negative? Almost impossible to do. And so there's been a huge discussions and backwards and forwards and phone calls and emails trying to work out where this came from. Now, our policy is absolutely strict in that we get clients to sign up as part of our terms and conditions when we start working with them, that everything and all assets they supply to us, if for us to use, are theirs or they have acquired the rights to use. The client was quite convinced that was a photograph that they took, so it is their IP. But this is years afterwards. So they're struggling to find out because the operational element of the business that was our client no longer exists. And all the people that worked in it don't work there anymore. They've all gone off to do different jobs and done other things. There is nobody left who can track this back. So there's an argument. Now, if that means that that's going to happen, they reserve the right to do that and they take it, image files or something, let's say, JT takes a photograph, it's his IP, and 3-4 years down the line, he sees an image of his being used somewhere that's been, I don't know, pulled through by an AI image search or just somebody simply searching in Google, and it's being made public by the people by WeTransfer. That starts to open up. I mean, it must be an IP lawyer's dream, this.
In JT's case, would watermarking help with an image to trace back? Because you might be able to encode information that allows you to go, I'll look in my records on that code and, oh yes, this was taken at, and the client was, and so on. Would that help him?
I would say no, because that makes the image unusable by, the press or
well, the thing is, you can watermark it, but it's encoded within the pixel, so you wouldn't see it.
To be fair, when he does a shoot for a client, he gives them permission to use the image what's the word? Forever.
In perpetuity.
In perpetuity. Thank you, Paul. Put my teeth in properly. So he gives them he owns the right to the image, but gives them the license to use it forever. Because he doesn't, I've had clients before that have, this is many, many, many years ago, working for a large conference center, and they employed a photographer to do some images. They had a 5-year license. They carried on using that photograph after the license ran out because nobody checked it. It was just nothing malicious, just somebody moved jobs, a new person coming in, didn't know, image got used, and they got taken to court and actually had to settle out of court. And this photographer was quite well known for just doing that, you've got it for 5 years and that's it. And you could argue, well, that's his right. That's up to him. But JT doesn't feel like that if a company's paid for that photo, they can use it for however long they want to.
Especially if they've taken a photo, if JT's taken a photo on premises.
Yeah, exactly.
With their staff. I mean, you couldn't use it anywhere else.
Yeah, he's been paid. He's gone to the event. The photos are theirs. Yeah,
it's almost like you've bought something from a shop but without knowing it, you've only can use it for 6 months before they come after you asking for it back.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Mind you, the way we only ever rent things these days, like Amazon books, Kindle books, I mean, they can take that away. It's a whole nother subject. We could just dive into that forever. But keep an eye on the time. Was there anything else to be said on that? Oh, well, there is, but I mean, I think in the last few seconds.
I think it's been an interesting week. And of course, as you pointed out, Bob, earlier, we've also had the whole Coldplay Kiss Cam going on at an event as well, which, bless them.
Yes, thankfully, this is a Coldplay free zone.
But I think it absolutely nails once and for all the myth that any publicity is good publicity. I think we can finally say that has been killed stone dead by this episode.
Yeah.
But
that guy's company is not doing very well at the moment. He's lost his job, and it's not good, is it?
Did I see? This may be there's a thing flying around on social media that it's rumored or somebody has put themselves forward as his daughter, who's now started an OnlyFans account, and whether it's true or not, it's just pouring more petrol on the fire, isn't it? And for her. This is a bit of something maybe we'll talk about in a future episode, but that's a little clever bit of newsjacking, which again is it's been bubbling under for I don't know 3 or 4 years. People newsjacking, and there's 1 or 2 agencies. A local agency to us called Rise at 7. A young lady called Carrie built a very successful international PR and comms agency on the back of newsjacking, and she does it incredibly well. It's a discipline, and it needs a lot of thought, planning, and a huge amount of resource and free, flexible resource ready to go. But what this lass has done, she's done that to get her OnlyFans account up, and I guarantee from the social media coverage, she will have had traffic to that OnlyFans account just out of curiosity. And no, I haven't looked. Just before anybody suggests it.
I like that.
But one very quick last question, then very quick. Do you think they got the license for reproducing the image on T-shirts? I mean, somebody must be selling merch of this by now.
Oh, well, there are 2 factors here, aren't there? 3. If when the cam went over to them, they just stood and waved, it would have been fine. If they'd have ducked, it would have meant that everybody in the stadium saw it, and that was it. But it was the fact that somebody was filming it, citizen journalist was filming it on her phone. She put it up on social media, and bam, I think she said she put it up and then went to bed and got 47 million views of it the next day. And that was the thing. It wasn't the fact they were on the screen. It was the fact it went viral. It was the fact it was shared on social media.
Somebody's making a fortune out of T-shirts, tea towels, beach towels, and mugs and whatever.
Oh.
Anyway, that's it for this week. We got to finish up.
Brilliant.
So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Bob, for hosting.
Yeah,
thanks. It's been great fun.
Really good chat. So all that's left to say is...
Same time next week.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah. Have a great weekend, folks.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
And cut.
This Week in Events is a production for the EPN Journal podcast. Huge thanks to our patrons, partners and industry friends for helping to make this possible. Details of how you can be a patron are in the show notes and on the PM Journal website. Thanks for listening.